Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, UFC Fight Night Moreno vs. Royval 2 takes place tomorrow evening, and I'm here to give my picks and a brief preview for every single fight on the card. We will start with the first fight of the night and work our way up, and as usual, I try to go through some of the earlier fights a little bit faster so we can spend more time on the main event, the co-main event, and things like that. So let us get started right away with the first fight of the night, which is Eric Silva versus Muhammad Naimov. Now, I will be going with Muhammad Naimov here. Eric Silva got finished in his debut against TJ Brown, who is not all that great, pretty inconsistent with all due respect. Also, he's 36 years old at featherweight, okay? And even the guy that he beat on the Contender Series to get his contract was just 3-0, which, considering you're in your later 30s, you have a lot more pro fight experience than that, is honestly not that impressive. Whereas Muhammad Naimov came in and had to fight Jamie Mullarkey, got the finish, then had to fight Nathaniel Wood, and managed to walk away with a decision victory. Both of those guys are a hell of a lot better than TJ Brown, in my opinion. And, you know, with the age gap as well, 36 years of age at featherweight, not ideal. So I am going to be going with Muhammad Naimov. We've seen Eric Silva get hurt. We've seen him get submitted. I think that we will see that again here. I think Muhammad Naimov, who does hit hard, will rock Eric Silva on the feet and then finish him off with a submission shortly thereafter. Okay, moving up the card. Victor Altamirano versus Felipe Dos Santos. I'm going Felipe Dos Santos. Victor Altamirano has kind of showed us time and time again that he's not necessarily UFC level, or if he is, it's very bottom of the barrel. His only 2 wins in the promotion are against a guy in Daniel Lacerda who is 0-4-1, and Benicio Salvador, who, if I'm not mistaken, is 0-2 since joining the UFC, okay? And then we saw him get schooled by Tim Kennedy, which I'm not going to, or not Tim Kennedy, Tim Elliott, my bad, dude. Not going to hold that one against him all that much. Tim Elliott is an anomaly when it comes to his age and this weight class, and does set a pace quite like, you know, nobody else. However, dude, Victor Altamirano kind of aided Tim Elliott's game plan there, continuously did things that would allow Tim Elliott to shoot underneath him and could not get off his back for the life of him once he was put there. Felipe Dos Santos, on the other hand, dude came in and had a hell of a showing of himself, despite losing against Manel Kape, which he took that fight on short notice when Kai Car-France pulled out, by the way, and he gave us a war with one of the top flyweights in the world. So I think he's going to have an easy time with Victor Altamirano, and I think that he finds a finish probably pretty early on as well. Now, moving up the card, 2, Luis Rodriguez versus Denis Bondar. I'm going with Luis Rodriguez. He's making his debut. Still going to pick him simply because I cannot forgive somebody, pardon me, who was finished by Malcolm Gordon, okay? Which, listen, I know Denis Bondar was injured in that fight. The elbow popped out. He was trying to post off of, I believe it was his left arm. Doesn't matter, because what you might not remember is that before that, he was getting touched up on the feet. He got hurt and rocked, had to panic shoot, and that was how we ended up in the position where he is on the ground, posting off of his left arm and having his elbow dislocated. Malcolm Gordon, in my opinion, is not all that good, and I think he has proved that time and time again, okay? And I also think that Luis Rodriguez probably hits harder than Malcolm Gordon. You know what I mean? So, I think Luis Rodriguez at some point hurts Denis Bondar and probably finishes him off with a TKO. Moving up the card, Claudio Puelles versus ZIAM. All right, I am going to be going with ZIAM here. But I'll be honest, dude, I don't know what the odds are, honestly, because the UFC's website is not showing me at the moment. If Claudio Puelles is a dog, I would consider him a live dog. I know that he had an embarrassing showing of himself last time out against Dan Hooker. The whole crowd was booing him. He's butt scooting, constantly flopping to the ground and what have you. There were moments in that first round, however, where if it was somebody that was not named Dan Hooker, who was not willing to tough out a knee bar or a heel hook or what have you, might have tapped just from sheer panic in an attempt to preserve their ligaments. Do you know what I mean? So, while, as I said, it was an embarrassing performance, he clearly has zero striking whatsoever. If he gets ZIAM in the same position that he had Dan Hooker in, we might see a tap. Do you know what I mean? I am going to trust in ZIAM, though, even though he's been subbed 3 times, okay? It's a little concerning. But he has fought against much better competition. He's beaten guys like Jai Herbert. He's beaten guys like Jamie Mullarkey. And I think that he's going to be well aware of the game plan, considering Claudio Puelles has no striking whatsoever. I think he's going to play it smart, keep distance, and kind of, you know, slowly start to take over. I don't think he's going to rush forward right away and find himself in a bad position. I think he's going to pick apart at range. And then as the fight gets longer, then he starts to pick up the pace a little bit more. So I am going to go with ZIAM. Maybe a late TKO, 3rd round. Moving up the card, 2, Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. First of all, fuck both of these guys because they missed weight. Edgar Chairez much more so than Daniel Lacerda. Edgar Chairez missed weight by 5 pounds, Daniel Lacerda by just a pound, but still, fuck them both. I made this pick before the weight miss, but it doesn't matter, dude. I'm going with Edgar CHAIREZ. If this fight is even still on by the time this video comes out, who fucking knows, dude. Daniel Lacerda's gone 0-4-1 in the UFC, okay? He got finished in all 4 of his losses. The no contest, was this one in which he was about to be finished. You know what I mean? If Chris Tognoni would have just not blown his fucking load that quickly, Edgar CHAIREZ might have strangled Daniel Lacerda to sleep. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? That fight was trending in Edgar CHAIREZ's direction. In my opinion, I think it's going to do so again here. And honestly, dude, I'm not trying to accuse Daniel Lacerda of any shady shit. But if you had gone 0-4 in the UFC, been finished 4 times, and you're about to get finished again, it might behoove you, okay? Behoove you to fake going out cold so the ref stops the fight, create a little bit of controversy, and have another crack at quite possibly the last fight on your contract. Do you know what I mean? So at the very least, you might be able to get a win bonus next time around, but I don't think it happens. Edgar CHAIREZ is good everywhere. He's got knockouts on his records. He's got even more submissions on his record. I don't think that Lacerda is going to be able to sub him. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I think CHAIREZ is tougher. And, you know, CHAIREZ showed us, too, against Tatsuro Taira, he can survive on the ground against a very dominant, top pressure grappler like Tatsuro Taira. And then even later on in that fight started to do damage. And there was times where, you thought, oh, he might get the finish here. So I'm going to go with Edgar CHAIREZ. But again, fuck them both because they missed weight. Moving up the card. Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonca. I'm going with Jesus Aguilar. He's a slight underdog here, but I think that he is going to dog this one out, okay? Experience, just toughness and all that shit. Got a finish last time out. He dropped his first fight to Tatsuro Taira, which I'm not going to hold against him. I don't think Mendonca is that same style of grappler. I think Mendonca is going to want to spend most of the time on the feet anyways. And I think that Jesus Aguilar is just going to pressure forward. And I think he'll eat shots to give him and won't give a fuck. And I think that eventually Mateus Mendonca might start to get tired. And then Jesus Aguilar takes over. And we see a unanimous decision victory from Jesus Aguilar simply because of pace and grittiness and willing to take damage. All right. Moving up the card. Christian QUINONEZ versus Raoni Barcelos, okay? I'm going to go with Raoni Barcelos. While he's older for bantamweight, and he's 1-3 in his last 4, I understand all that, okay? He's fighting much better guys than Christian QUINONEZ has. I think that QUINONEZ's last loss has not aged well, and to be quite fucking honest, his one and only UFC win has not aged well either, because since then, that guy's been cut from the promotion. Do you know what I mean? And hasn't fought a whole lot since that fight, so nothing to really go off of based on UFC level competition, whereas Raoni Barcelos has been fighting very good fighters, very good competition the entire time, and has showed us, even at 36 years of age, he's not an easy guy to put away. Do you know what I mean? Umar Nurmagomedov put him away, but none of those other losses in those 3 that I mentioned were finishes. He was able to get a win in between some of them. He's fighting way better guys. I think he's more skilled. He's powerful. We saw him hurt Kyler Phillips on multiple occasions in that fight, so he still has power. I don't think he's going to get submitted easily here. He's good on the ground as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think that Barcelos kind of vets this one out. Christian QUINONEZ does not have a whole lot of high-level experience, in my opinion, okay? It is what it is. So I'm going with the old man, Raoni Barcelos. Moving up the card, Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. Manuel Torres, dude, I'm going with Torres. He's 2-0 in the UFC, 2 KOs since. Chris Duncan has had some success, and something with Chris Duncan is you can see progression in his game every time out. Do you know what I mean? Like, he looks better every single time he fights. He still hasn't been able to get a finish in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. He's won both of his UFC fights, but in his last fight against Yanel Ashmuz, okay, the dude had a broken arm. And you'd think that if you were going to get a finish, it would be against an opponent who broke his arm early in the fight. Do you know what I mean? Now, credit to Ashmuz for surviving because, you know, it took toughness and grit and whatever. But I feel like Chris Duncan probably could have done a little bit more to get the finish on a guy that he had injured. Do you know what I mean? So I am going to go with Manuel Torres. We see Chris Duncan get hit quite a bit, pardon me. We've seen him get knocked out in the past. And I think that Manuel Torres, considering he's clearly a knockout artist, he has a ton of knockout power, I think that it's only a matter of time before he's able to find Chris Duncan's chin and hurt him and probably finish the fight. Who knows? Chris Duncan, you know, he's only been finished the one time, I think, by knockout, and it was a decent time ago, but he's not much of a finisher, at least at the UFC level, and he does get hit quite a bit, so I could potentially see him getting finished here. Moving up the card, too, Yazmin Jauregui versus Sam Hughes, okay? I'm going with Sam Hughes. solely and simply because fuck picking a lady at minus 135. Not happening ever, okay? I'll take the L before I pick a lady that's minus 345 who's 0-1 in the UFC, okay? And also, by the way, that 0-1, she was a massive favorite against Denise Gomez at Rodriguez, or Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez on that card. She was a huge favorite. I picked Denise Gomez to knock her out, and she did just that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know where the fuck the odds makers get off giving this lady a minus 345 when she came in her debut and got finished by a chick she was supposed to run through, okay? Odd. Now, Sam Hughes may not have the same kind of knockout power that Denise Gomez does, but Sam Hughes has fought way better competition for a much longer time than Yasmin Jauregui, okay? So just because she doesn't have crazy power or crazy finishing ability doesn't mean she can't vet this one out and, you know, fraud check this lady once again. Again, as I said, I will take the L before I pick a woman who's 0-1 in the UFC at minus 345, okay? Fucking nuts. Moving up the card, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. I'm going to be going with Raul Rosas Jr. Ricky Turcios, he was fun on The Ultimate Fighter. He had a lot of fun fights, you know what I mean? Fun moments. He's a wild fucking dude. Real character. A little bit cringe sometimes with the Goku shit or whatever it is, dude. But since he's been in the UFC, he has only won by split decision over guys that are pretty goddamn green and are hardly UFC level. Do you know what I mean? So, now, something that I will say. Raul Rosas Jr. should not Khamzat Chimaev this fight, in my opinion. Do not sprint it. Right? Don't try to sprint and get him out of there in the first minute, because Ricky Turcios is a very durable guy. He is skilled in some aspects of MMA. Do you know what I mean? Like, his ground game is good. He's never been submitted. He's gotten a number of submissions. I think he's only been knocked out or TKO'd once in his career. He does go to a decision most of the time, which shows us that he's both tough and has the cardio to do so. So if Raul Rosas Jr. finds himself kind of like he did against fuck, I can't remember the name off the top of my head who he lost to. But, do you know what I mean? If he finds himself making it out of the first round, he might have a tough second and third if he goes all out and sprints in the first round like he kind of tends to do. Do you know what I mean? Because Ricky Turcios is one of those guys where I don't know that I would necessarily call him a vet, but when you compare him to a guy like Raul Rosas Jr., he is certainly that. Do you know what I mean? So, he could tough out the first round. He could tire out Raul Rosas Jr. I just don't think so. I think he gets ragdolled. I think he makes it fun while he's getting ragdolled, but still gets ragdolled. I think that Raul Rosas Jr. should be able to find a finish. But who knows, dude? As I said, Ricky Turcios has never been submitted. Only been TKO'd once. Tough guy. Good cardio. Very durable. And, you know, usually, even in the fights that he does lose, they're competitive to a certain extent. So, you know. Good matchup for Raul Rosas Jr. My bad, dude. But, yeah. Don't fucking Khamzat Chimaev this one, and he should be able to get it done. Moving up the card, too. Daniel ZELLHUBER versus Francisco Prado. I am going to be going with ZELLHUBER here. I think that ZELLHUBER, he's a little more tested in the UFC. He's shown us talent and skill. And, look, he came in on his debut. Tough fight against Trey Ogden, who's got a weird, awkward style and is a vet in his own right. Also, ZELLHUBER was kind of just not active enough in that fight, in my opinion. Kind of thought like the finish would maybe come or something, or I don't know what he thought, but he was very inactive in that fight and allowed Trey Ogden to come out ahead. But then we see him after that, right, against Lando Venata. A lot more active. Not as active as I would like him to be, but a lot more active. Hurt Lando Venata on a number of occasions. Got a decision victory that time out. Lando Venata is a very tough guy to finish. And then we see him in his next fight wrap up an Anaconda. So clearly he's learning, like, I need to be more aggressive. I need to get this shit done. Do you know what I mean? So I think that he's going to be able to get the job done here. Like, Prado came in, dude, and kind of got schooled by Jamie Malarkey, who's pretty good, but not really a guy you should be getting fucking schooled by, especially with the amount of hype that you had behind you. Now, he has since bounced back and gotten a good knockout victory over Otman Azaitar, or whatever the fuck. But still, dude, I think that ZELLHUBER has just showed us that he's got a little bit more skill. Also, he's going to have a massive, if I'm not mistaken, 8-inch reach advantage in this fight, which I think plays in to his game a lot. Like, he's going to be able to stay on the outside and kind of jab Prado's face off and keep a safe distance and hit him while Prado will have a tough time hitting him. Now, maybe I could see towards the end of the fight, Prado starting to figure that distance out, starting to make his way through and starting to land shots, but I think it's going to be a little too late. I don't think that Daniel ZELLHUBER finishes Prado. Prado is a tough motherfucker. We saw that in the Jamie Malarkey fight. Also, he's never been finished before ever, so there's that. But I do I think ZELLHUBER takes him to a decision, and I think that Prado has some success later on in the fight. Hopefully ZELLHUBER just, you know, keeps on getting a little bit more active in his fights, because that's the only knock that I really had on him in his first couple. Now moving up the card, 2, Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. I'm going with Yair Rodriguez, dude. You want to know, there's no Brian Ortega bashing his nose on a rock and then getting plastic surgery to fix it does not convince me that he's all of a sudden a much better fighter, okay? And I'll be honest, dude, when I first heard him going off about the birds, I thought he was speaking metaphorically, but I just saw his weigh-in picture, okay? And he actually unironically looks like he needs a nose job, so maybe he did the first step where he bashed his beak on a rock until it broke off or whatever. But he didn't go through with fixing it. He hasn't yet finished that step. He hasn't got the surgery that he needs to repair his beak. Also, dude, grinding your fucking toenails off on a rock doesn't give me much confidence in you either, okay? Your toenails should have been well kept before anyways. You're a jiu-jitsu guy, dude. That's fucking basic gym hygiene, dude. Don't get on the mat with long-ass toenails, okay? What the fuck, dude? You had to have some crazy rebirth and revelation to groom yourself, okay? To become mat ready? Odd, okay? But besides all that, dude, Yair Rodriguez is just much nastier fucking everywhere. Now, I'm not saying he's a better submission artist than Brian Ortega is, but I don't think that Brian Ortega's jiu-jitsu is proven to be all that useful, especially when you can get up-kicked, you can get punched, you can get elbowed and all this shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, Yair Rodriguez is just fucking nasty. That's what it comes down to. He's trying to hurt you everywhere. There's no real pitter-patter shots from Yair Rodriguez. He wants to hurt you. I think we're going to see body kicks being blasted. I think we're going to see him chopping Brian Ortega's leg away. I think Brian Ortega, within the first fucking minute, is going to be trying to clinch up with Yair Rodriguez to try to force some sort of grappling exchange. I think Yair Rodriguez is going to use good lateral movement to stay away from that and continue to blast kicks and shit like this. Flying knees, who knows, right? He's just much more dynamic, much more powerful, much nastier, okay? And has been active. That's another thing, dude. Brian Ortega, his last win, Ilia Topuria was 1-0 in the UFC. Okay, Ilia Topuria is now the champion of his division, and Brian Ortega has not gotten a win since then. It's honestly pathetic. I don't know how he's still ranked number 4. It drives me fucking crazy. What drives me even fucking crazier is if he were to go out there and somehow lock up a guillotine on Yair Rodriguez, okay, he would probably get a title shot, which is completely and totally fucking undeserved. Unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? Go fucking bash your beak some more, buddy. Yair Rodriguez, TKO. Moving up the card. Actually, no, not TKO. Brian Ortega's a tough son of a bitch. I think it goes all 3 rounds. I think Yair Rodriguez just beats the ever-living shit out of him and hopefully is able to stay away from the grappling of Brian Ortega. Okay? Something else I didn't like, dude. I think that Brian Ortega was trying to butter up Yair Rodriguez by making him face off with his children. Okay? Because Yair Rodriguez seems to be a nice guy. Okay, and he was talking about how he didn't even like the fact he didn't want to fight Brian Ortega. He likes Brian Ortega. He doesn't really want to fight him. And then you got Brian Ortega rolling up to the face-off with his children. Okay, making Yair Rodriguez maybe feel a little bit bad for what he's about to do to their father. Okay, so I didn't like all that either. So I hope Yair Rodriguez butchers him. Okay, moving up the card, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. I'm going with Brandon Moreno here. I don't know how much time I need for this one. I think that Brandon Moreno is just quite simply better everywhere, if I'm being honest. Now, Brandon Royval might be a little bit more dynamic, might be a little more likely to land like a knockout blow on somebody, like a crazy knee or some shit like that. However, dude, he's fighting Brandon Moreno, who has a very, very good chin. I think that Brandon Moreno has proven in his fights with Davidson Figueiredo and his fights with Pantoja that he's a better grappler than Brandon Royval, right? Brandon Royval, when Pantoja would get him down, that was his kryptonite. He couldn't do fuck all. Whereas Brandon Moreno was having crazy scrambles with Pantoja. Crazy exchanges on the feet. Now, Brandon Moreno's defense is not that good, right? He's got a beautiful jab. Some of his boxing is nice, but his defensive boxing is not great. He gets hit quite a bit. But he's so tough that it doesn't fucking matter, okay? And I just think that, honestly, dude, I think he's better everywhere than Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval could potentially land a big shot, like a jump knee or some shit like this, but I don't think so. I think Brandon Moreno's a lot tougher. And I think that if he needs to, if he's getting hurt on the feet by Brandon Royval, by the big shots of Brandon Royval, who's probably going to fight at a much higher pace than he did against Pantoja, because against Pantoja, I feel like he was kind of maybe trying to conserve his energy in case it did go rounds 4 and rounds 5. I think he's going to come out there fucking crazy, because that didn't really go his way, right? When he decided to conserve his energy against Pantoja, he ended up losing that fight. So I think he's going to try and be very aggressive, come forward. And I think that if Brandon Moreno needs to, he can take him down, especially after watching the Pantoja fights, and probably hold him there. Maybe even get a submission. Do you know what I mean? Brandon Moreno's very good everywhere. I know people maybe get driven a little bit crazy by his voice and what have you, or the fact that he builds Legos. Whatever, dude. Legos are fun. Fuck you. So, Brandon Moreno, probably decision, if I'm being honest. I think it'll go all 5. I think it'll be a very fun fight, but I do think that he's able to win, at the very least, 3 rounds. Anyways, dude, that's the end of this picks video. Okay, like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you with the next video. Bye-bye.